The top story on ABC News Breakfast, the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has used a rare public address to accuse international forces of fueling the unrest in the country. He says he's determined to restore security by hitting terrorists with an iron fist.
The president once again denied there were orders for security forces to shoot civilians, and he proposed a referendum on a new constitution set to take place in March.
Our priority now is to regain security, which our country has enjoyed for decades. This can only be achieved by hitting the terrorists with an iron fist. There'll be no leniency for those who are using weapons to kill our civilians. We will not be lenient with those who work with outsiders against their nation and people. Some Arab countries may be more hostile and aggressive towards Syria now than some other foreign countries. Some try to play a reasonable role, trying to bring us together and bring solutions to this issue. There are some countries that are doing what we ask them to. Some Arab countries stood against us and announced that officially. When we speak to them, they say, we are with you, but there is pressure from other sources, and some foreign countries are pushing some Arab countries to stand against us.
And that is the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. For more, Dr. Musab Azawi from the Syrian Observatory of Human Rights joins us from London via webcam. Many thanks for your time. Well, his speech, a rare speech indeed, went on for nearly 2 hours, seemingly not grasping the reality that's playing out in his country.
Well, basically, this is some kind of repeating the same tone of the last 3 speeches. He did not admit that there is a crisis in the country. He's still accusing those people who are working hardly to get freedom and dignity, and accusing them that they are part of Western conspiracy to topple his regime, which is not true. There are real people inspired by the revolution in Tunisia and Egypt, and they just want freedom and dignity as any human being in the other parts of the world.
What did you make of his comments about holding a referendum as soon as the legalities of that could be drawn up?
Well, I can't make anything out of this because he did not admit that there is a crisis. And also, who can trust this regime to hold the referendum properly, and they don't stuff the ballot boxes with these fake ballot papers as it happened in the past when they had some kind of referendum to re-elect him personally, and they had more than 99.9% of the total population agree that they want him to be president. And in fact, we could document yesterday 449 points of demonstrations in a small country like Syria, with more than 1 million persons took to the streets. So I don't trust this at all.
And in the meantime, the UN now has confirmed figures of around 5,000 people possibly dying in the conflict. The situation becomes quite dire, and he seems to continue, even though he distances himself from it, to allow security forces to crack down very strongly.
Well, basically, the number we have is 6,762 persons killed so far. We have their full names and small statements from their families. There are more than 442 persons killed by torturing, more than 391 children, more than 259 women killed. So if you want to describe what's going on in Syria in 2 words, this is a genocide, and the whole regime key players have to be referred to the International Criminal Court, because what happens in Syria is exactly as what Amnesty International said. There are crimes against humanity.
How do you think that the deadlock in this is going to be broken? We've seen the Arab League observers going into the country, not necessarily being able to have any impact at all. How do you think this is going to change?
Well, basically, the Arab League mission have failed completely because they are not well prepared, and they are led by a criminal wanted for the ICC. He was responsible for genocide in Darfur. He was the top delegate of President al-Bashar to Darfur. We don't trust this mission at all. We think the international community should take over, and they have to impose at least no-fly zone embargo buffer zone to create some shelter for these suffering people. And also we are campaigning for humanitarian corridors, as the Alain Juppé, the Foreign Secretary of France, has been calling to help those people who are the indirect victims of the crackdown. And also the international community should step in and not work by double standards. They stepped in Libya in 2 weeks, but after 10 months of bloody crackdown, they failed to take any minor resolution. So we think that they have to do that very quickly.
So are you convinced a military course is the only one, that there is no diplomatic solution to this?
Well, basically, it should not be a military solution, but if that is the only option, I think that they have to reclone what happened in Libya in the past, because protecting civilians need to be translated according to the terminology and the convention in the community and the United Nations, to see what is the best tool to protect the civilians. So the aim is protecting the civilians. But if they have to do something similar to what happened in Libya, the real people on the ground, they are calling for this because they cannot tolerate any more killing. I feel that all the diplomatic trials would fail because the regime is not accepting. You notice today how defiant the top of the regime is, and I don't think that they will accept. They just use all of these diplomatic missions to buy time. So we think that the international community should interfere and step very quickly.
Dr. Musab Azawi, many thanks for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
Dr. Musab Azawi there on that ongoing conflict in Syria. A very long speech by the President showing that he is not giving any way at all in terms of the ongoing conflict in his country.